and welcome to Members on the Mic with the Troy Chamber of Commerce, where we connect with Troy Chamber members as they give us a glimpse into their company and share some of the business lessons they've learned along the way. Hi, everyone. I'm Tara Thompson-Cusack, President and CEO of the Troy Chamber of Commerce, and I'm joined today by my amazing co-host and Vice President of the Chamber, Sheila Denstead.
Hi, everyone.
First and foremost, I'd love to take a moment to thank our presenting sponsor, Trion Solutions. Stay tuned for our commercial break where you can learn how you can rely on Trion. We've got a great show lined up for you all today. Sheila, why don't you tell us about our great member we're going to be meeting with today?
I would love to. Today we are meeting with Andrea Walker with Walker Publicity. Telling stories has always been Andrea's passion. When she launched Walker PR in 2007, she had a vision of helping others share their unique tales. Andrea has a true passion for nonprofit work and supports them through Walker PR's ability to connect stories of nonprofits with the local media. She spent the last decade building relationships in the community she serves, as well as media across the globe. Those relationships have given her the honor of sharing stories, connecting people, and building her own business. Andrea loves all things local and spends much of her time with her husband, son, and two giant Labradoodle pups. Andrea, welcome. Now that our guests know a little bit about you, can you tell us more about Walker PR?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me today. I love what the Chamber does and love that you guys have kind of expanded into doing podcasts. That's super fun. Walker PR really was this vision that I had accidentally in early 2000 when, companies were trying to pivot at that point for the first time. And realizing that there were so many great stories to tell of small businesses and really not always great ways to do that, right? And I had these wonderful media connections and I was doing great freelance writing and I thought, what if I could just be this bridge builder between small businesses and nonprofits who may not always have the budget for a large agency, but really have these great stories to tell. And so it took off from there. And I always tell people, a couple of jobs, a husband, a kid, some dogs, a couple houses later, we repivoted ourselves in 2016 and started really just solely doing this again and re-envisioned what we could do and brought on social media work and a great little team. And we really just love it.
So, Andrea, obviously you're talking about all these amazing, great things. And giant Labradoodle pups, by the way, first of all, makes me laugh when you say giant pup. So, wow.
I keep having to remind myself that they are, so they'll be a year old in January, and they are like probably 50 pounds.
Oh.
And we bought a brother and sister because they were adorable, and why not? And it's been the highlight of my, they're the best coworkers I could ask for. You'd always want a coworker who will lay on your feet under your desk, right?
Tara, I am not laying under your desk, Sheila.
We need a work puppy.
Oh, I'm not going to oppose a work puppy, but we talk about these great things. Obviously, your family is very important to you and everything of that nature. But this is a very complicated industry. And what influenced you? What was the greatest influence that brought you into this marketing strategic kind of organization and publicity?
Yeah. It's funny because to me, it's not complicated.
Oh.
And I think that's what brought me into it, because it wasn't elusive to me. And it really was just about building relationships. And where you build relationships is where you end up being able to tell stories, right? That's what we do when we meet people for lunch. It's what we, I tell people it used to be, you'd go to the general store or the water cooler. And I'm really just, the word of mouth spreads. In the beginning, I used to say I just have a really big mouth. I feel like I don't need to say that so often anymore, but it's true. The person who can be that voice is what I've liked to do. And that really is what PR is. It's connecting a story or an idea with the people who are telling the story. Through social media, it's been amazing because we can tell our own stories, right? But through the media, I worked in journalism for a couple of years right out of college and was a freelance writer and loved just, again, being a writer. My goal was to be a writer. So I always say if I'm writing 140 characters for Twitter or I'm getting to write someone's, blog or whatever, I'm getting to be a writer every day, which was my first passion. So my goal gets to be first, and then having cool stories to tell. So it really isn't it's not complicated when you partner with the right person and you have people on your team who understand that and want to tell some stories. And that's what I think is really cool about what we get to do.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a big misconception around public relations. And I know that you know this, but it's people are like, oh, public relations, you just got to get out there. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not just outreach. There's a little more to it. So can you explain, obviously, what public relations is specifically and why businesses need it so much right now?
Yeah. One of the first things I tell everyone is, we ask every client that we meet, like, what's your dream? Where would you want to be? And everyone says something great, like CNN or O Magazine. Okay, well, have you had an article published in the local newspaper? Did you submit your press release to Sheila for the Troy website? And usually they say no, right? And so, like, to get to your big goal, you have to start somewhere. And that's what PR is. PR is saying, where's our audience? What's our story? What's newsworthy? We do a lot of training on just what's newsworthy. And finding out, and that's what public relations is. And I simplify it, often by saying it's relating with the public. That's literally it.
Simple, makes sense.
It is, and it's discovering who your ideal public is. Everyone will now be asking, well, should we be on Twitter and TikTok and Snapchat? And okay, well, is your audience there? Is your ideal client there? Is the person you want to connect with there? If not, then no. And do you have the capacity to manage that 29,000 times a day? Because that's what it would take on TikTok and things like that. So it really is. It's relating with your public. And I think if we simplify it to that, then it isn't so confusing.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, talking about confusing and relating to your clients and your public, social media, the platforms, everything, it's changing every minute, every second of every day. How do you keep your clients abreast of where they should be based on their demographic, based on who they're trying to reach, with it changing constantly?
Yeah.
Right. We at Walker Publicity, we stick to the basics. So I tell people there will always be a new trend and a new fad, and it's important to always evaluate those things and get into something that is ideal, again, for your public, right? But we really think that there are some spaces that have longevity, where you can consistently tell your story. The most important thing with all of social media is consistency. With all of PR, with all of messaging, with all of marketing, right? Consistency is king. We say content is queen and consistency is king in our office, and both are equal. But it's really just deciding, where can we tell our story consistently? Where do we have the capacity to manage those things? And so, social media is changing all the time. It's lovely if you can have a partner to help out with that. And we do a lot of social media, but there are times where we'll say, hey, there's this expert in this other thing that is going to be really great. Video, if you need video production, that might be an investment that you need to do, because there are pieces that will work really well on social media, but you got to take the time to invest in that. So it's changing all the time. But consistent communication is the best way to keep up with any change, especially on social media, and not being scared. I think people get really scared of...
Sheila's laughing. She's like, yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. People get really scared of what am I going to post? And they overthink it. And what if it's a mess? And, well, you can just delete that. And not to dissuade anyone, but as important as everyone is, unless you have millions of followers, you are not that important. And it's okay. And that is okay. Again, relate with your public, right? Is your public following you on social media? Awesome. You got the job done.
Yep. That actually makes a lot of sense. Well, actually, as we're keeping the ball rolling, I think this is a great time to take our little break and hear a word from our presenting sponsor, Trion Solutions. So we'll see you back in just a second.
Does your company use a national payroll service that doesn't know or care much about your business? Well, there's a better payroll solution that can also help you more efficiently manage HR services, benefits administration, workers' compensation, and regulatory compliance. Companies of all sizes turn to Trion Solutions to process their payrolls and reduce the stress and burden of HR administration. Get the personal touch from one of the top professional employer organizations in the country. Trion Solutions at RelyOnTrion.com.
Welcome back to Members on the Mic with the Troy Chamber of Commerce. We're here today with Andrea Walker with Walker PR. Andrea, we can obviously see that you truly enjoy what you do. It shows through everything you've said today. What's your greatest passions in your career? What is it that you strive for? What keeps you going every day besides coffee?
Actually, for me, it's like any diet soda. So I'm not, coffee midday, but I'm like a can first thing in the morning. I love working with nonprofits and I love sharing their stories. So when we started, it was with this idea that if I worked with businesses that could afford PR, then I'd have this little pocket where I could create nonprofit packages for nonprofits who can't afford PR or who could afford it but not on a bigger budget. So we always balance our client load between nonprofits and for-profits, which I love. But that's really my passion. My passion is really just sharing and collaborating and telling those stories. Sheila knows, probably several times a week you get information or PR or something from us on a client of ours who's either a member of the Troy Chamber or I'm the member and it's a nonprofit with a worthy cause and I'm saying, hey, can you get this in because I'm the member, but also just I'm passionate about connecting communities. And so, every client of mine really should be a member of a chamber in their community and they should be giving back to their local. And so my business clients and my organizational clients, they love the fact that they know that what they do with me also allows me to give back to nonprofits, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And so really, that's what wakes me up in the morning for work. Working and being able to work flexibly, and being able to have a life where I can take my son to school in the morning and I can work remotely and I've got the Labradoodles under the desk.
Which also wakes you up in the morning.
They do.
Yes.
They do. That really, my passion is, we always say work-life balance. I say work-life better. Every day I would like to remind myself, like, okay, how can I do this better today? Like, what can I do to enjoy this more? And that's really my passion. And I love being able to kind of, when I can, infuse that into other organizations.
I'm going to use that slogan, work life better. I think that's one nugget I'm definitely taking from you today. But you mentioned you care so much about the nonprofit community. The Troy Chamber of Commerce has over 60 nonprofit members. And the one thing that I hear from them all the time is they don't know how to share their story. So how do you start with those nonprofit organizations and help them come up with a newsworthy story? How do you start that whole process and get it going?
Everything starts with a conversation.
Okay.
Everything starts with just talking about what do you do? What do you like? There are some clients where I say, just show me your calendar this week. Because
you don't want to see our calendar.
But there are a lot of times that you are so invested and ingrained in what you do on a daily basis that you don't even know that it's really cool.
Yeah.
And so when they're out there doing their mission and they're out there doing, sharing with their communities and doing the hard work, they're not thinking about, wow, this really is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We helped, the holidays is a perfect time to talk about that. When we look at what happens over the holiday season, these nonprofits are giving to hundreds and hundreds of people, but they're like in the thick of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're not thinking, oh, wow, this is so cool. They're in the thick of it.
They're exhausted.
Yeah. And so being able to just say, okay, what's coming up? And so we like to create content calendars for everyone where we look at the whole year. There are some things that come up all the time that we can talk about, but also just saying, what do you do? What do you guys love? Who on your team is doing something new? What trainings did you guys just take? Was that, And so, it all starts with that conversation of me just asking lots of questions with my journalism background and thinking about what folks might want to talk about in the news. I will say, freebie, if you are a Troy Chamber member, send your news to Sheila. That is the first stop. Like, there's amazing platforms that you can utilize that you can kind of own yourself, that if you just use it, you can get your word to at least the chamber members, which is a wonderful, vast list of people already. Mm-hmm. And then it helps you to learn, okay, that was kind of newsworthy. We did get a call from that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, Andrea, thank you for leading into Tara's favorite segment. Did you know?
Right.
That was actually a great idea. I don't think I've ever had a lead in that well for this segment. So, guys,
Leave it to the marketing person.
that's how you
to
work.
figure
It's
that
the
out.
PR and it's the journalism girl. But this is my absolute favorite segment where we get to learn a little bit about some of our member benefits. So, Sheila, what did you know are you going to be teaching us today?
I am going to teach you about using our good news page on our website, troychamber.com.
How ironic.
I know. You can post your good news at any point in time, 24/7, or send it to me, like Andrea does, which I love because then I get to read it first before it gets out on the press. Submit a press release right under the press release page, and then we'll take it from there, get it out to our community, which is 3,000 plus eyes in the Troy Chamber directory.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks, Sheila. That's really good to know. And now you know, too. Yeah, I did the finger thing. You're like,
I
hey,
love that.
I love it. Super fun. So, Andrea, just kind of to wrap things up a little bit, as a small business owner, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned along the way?
Gosh.
I know. Sorry, that's the tough
Just
one. I
some.
always leave
How
like,
long is the podcast?
Right.
I the most important thing I have learned is that relationships are everything.
Yeah.
Sure.
It really is.
For sure.
I couldn't do what I do if I didn't build relationships. I couldn't help the organizations or the other businesses that I work with if they didn't build relationships. And so, again, that elusive world of PR, it's really just relationship building.
Yeah.
And so, we take the stress off of building some relations with media folks, right? But it's also just staying top of mind, being a part of people's life. I said when we walked in, being top of mind was how Sheila and I talked about doing the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, hey, what's going on in your world? What could I help with? Like, that is huge. And I think that is something that businesses just forget because, again, we get into like, I'm lucky. My job is building relationships. Not everyone's main job is that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I could encourage and just tell every business owner, like, where are you networking within the time you have? I've told you guys before, like, I'm not going to be at an early morning breakfast. That's just not my thing. I'm going to take my son to
You
school.
need the can of diet
I'm going to
soda.
find a can of diet soda, and I'm going to like get into the day's work. Like, that is not, but I am going to be on social media, and I am going to share someone else's news, and I am going to congratulate them when they win an award. Like, the relationships you build in business and in personal life are everything. I say I love all things local, and by local, I just, I was born and raised in Michigan. I love the potential of our state all the time.
Absolutely.
And so it's building and reinvesting in those relationships that I really think are everything to business. And it's what makes a business last a long time, even if the business changes or what you specifically do changes. Those relationships will carry with you.
Well, and I think what's kind of neat about that as well is you're utilizing the word relationships. Relationships are two ways. So it's not coming out and spewing, here's what I do, here's how I can help.
Yes.
It's listening. It's having a genuine interest in other people because that is how those things get started.
Yeah.
You hear something and say, oh, I could help with that. But it's
Yeah.
not so just about you, the egocentrisms in the world that can just take over.
Yeah.
It's about building those true relationships. And I
Exactly.
think you epitomize that. So that's really good to hear.
Thanks.
Andrea, so many bits of information today. Just all great, all so helpful to our members. One last nugget. What's one last thing you want our members to take away from today's
Just gave you
recording?
that whole relationship.
I know, but I
gave
know
you
there's
the
more.
work-life better thing.
We're gonna
What
keep
more do you
asking for
want from
more.
me?
I know you well. You have lots
It's always
more.
a little more, right?
Always.
One last nugget is, shameless plug. Don't be scared to call a PR person. Don't be scared to have the conversation. The nugget is, remember that it is okay if you don't know what story you're telling, but take some time to sit with your team and think, what are we doing right now? And what do we think is cool? I think if every business does that, if every organization just sat down with your team, have lunch, hop on a Zoom call, make it relaxing and say, hey, what's everyone doing this week? What are you doing that's cool? And what are you doing that you think is cool? Personal life, training, anything. That is where that is where businesses are able to thrive with each other and learn from each other. But that's also where you discover those little pieces that you're not telling the world that you might need to be.
That's awesome. Amazing.
See, this is why we ask for more nuggets.
Yes. Well, and that's why we're blessed with great members like you. The
Thank
information
you.
you've shared
Thank
with
you.
our group over the year, especially being on our crisis communications panel this summer, that information was invaluable at that time. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you for sharing everything going on at Walker PR. We're just blessed to have you as a member. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. And that's all we have here today at Members on the Mic with the Troy Chamber of Commerce. Special thanks to our guest, Andrea Walker with Walker Publicity. We were struggling with the word publicity today, just so you know, publicity.
She gave us a blessing to say PR.
Yeah,
Which
that's
you
right.
did.
Make it easy.
And obviously to our presenting sponsor, Trion Solutions. For more information on upcoming events or to join the Troy Chamber, go to troychamber.com. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.